to digress very fast into BizChat. But Ken, you've seen the German Chancellor is in there. It's taking a little bit of getting used to compared to a popular name like Angela Merkel. But everyone is looking at Africa, even listening to the ADMI CEO saying that Africa and digitization, they go hand in hand because this is the frontier for expansion. What do you have to say about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. We've been used to Angela Merkel, who was there for 15 years. So I think people are adjusting to the new chancellor. But historically, Germany and Kenya, first of all, have had a strong diplomatic and trade relationship. In fact, after independence, Germany was the first country to recognize Kenya. So there's a historical relationship there. And these trade relationships can go from the digital space to agriculture, to manufacturing. Germany is a huge manufacturing powerhouse, and here in Kenya we talk about getting our manufacturing to 20% of GDP. So I think there are lots of lessons that that relationship can provide for Kenya in terms of skills, digital skills, TVET. Germany is very strong on TVET skills, and that. So I think this could be something useful if it's well harnessed.
Definitely. Dr. Kamau,
yes.
You look like you're a fan of Benz. When you see German, we just think of German machine. Yeah, but looking at the potential collaborations.
Yes.
It seems there's a tug of war between the West and the East for Africa. And we see our leaders sort of treading this path because we are used to a world where either you are leaning this side or the other side. I don't know, with all this interest with the new government, what do you see it portends for the country?
Yeah, that's for sure. There's a lot of interest about Kenya by the East and by the West. Of course, by the East, I mean China, we have Japan, and then the West, we have the Europe and the US. But it is Kwame Nkrumah who said in 1957 that we as an African nation, and of course that time he was referring to Ghana, we are neither facing East nor West, but we are facing forward. So it's a choice that the government of Kenya has to make, and I think it is making it very well because it has not shown any preference for any side, but it is willing to collaborate and work with either sides.
Beautiful. That's the beauty of reading. It's Kwame Nkrumah, amazing. And the history also, a bit of it. Germany was the first country to pick up their phone call and say, Kenya, congratulations on your independence. Yeah, that's amazing. Anyway, top stories of the week. Let's start with Marta's finance bill, where the government is set to introduce a new tax bracket for high-income earners who may have to pay up to 35% of income actually towards payee, and that goes to the government, even as the government looks to increase revenue collection. The measures contained in the Finance Bill 2023 will be a mixed bag for you, with some taxes impacting on the Wanjiku as well as a majority of businesses. Let's take a look at this. More money, more taxes. Treasury, through Finance Bill 2023, is proposing that those making above 500,000 shillings will contribute 35% on pay as you earn.
Geared towards creating a situation where there is a fair taxation, where those who earn more are going to chip in terms of paying more of pay as you earn, which to me is not a bad idea, because in any case, this the concept of pay as you earn.
And still on deductions from employees, the policy has fronted a 3% deduction that will be equal by the employer to go towards the National Housing Development Fund.
Remember, many Kenyans are already overtaxed. There are a lot of items which is siphoning out their mega salaries and putting more burden to these workers. I think it's at service from the side of the government. In any case, It's not mandatory you force workers to contribute into houses. Some of them have houses.
Besides the pockets of workers, Treasury also proposes to expand the bracket of businesses included in the turnover tax by roping in businesses making between $500,000 shillings and 15 million a year. Further turnover tax will be increased from the current 1% to 3%. The move could see small and medium businesses roped into this tax net.
Right now, the government, the avenues of collecting revenue have been compromised. It's a better way of increasing the tax bracket, and it's supposed to move towards increasing revenue collection for the country.
The beauty and pharmaceutical industry have not been spared either, with excess duty imposed on sugar used by the pharmaceutical manufacturers, human hair, and other products of heading, wigs, false beards, and eyebrows.
This, to me, is a positive move to protect the local industry. You remember there was the issue of even the Chinese fish being flooded in the local market. So the local farmers who are basically engaged in fish production will actually be more protected.
The finance bill will also hit younger Kenyans monetizing online content, with Taxman defining digital content monetization as offering for payment, entertainment, social, literal, artistic, educational, or any other materials electronically through any medium or channel. This will see the application of a 15% tax on advertisements on websites, social media platforms, or similar networks, brand partnerships and endorsements, sponsorship, affiliate marketing, and subscription. Artists and musicians will also not be spared, with the tax applying to licensing of content including photos, music, and other projects. Taxes will also be imposed on the transfer or sale of digital assets such as cryptocurrencies, token code, and non-fungible tokens. Nokip Kimboy, KTN News. All right. Wow. I know when they mentioned fake beards as part of the wigs, yeah? And what are they called? Eyelashes. Did they say eyelashes? Eyebrows, something like that. I was like, guy, the fake beard hits home. People with fake beards can, you know? And just looking at this finance bill, first of all, what matters the hits and misses. Because I've seen there is a heavy leaning towards targeting the digital space, which we've had a back and forth over the past few years on how to properly get taxes in that space. And this bill is quite definitive around that, even describing, you know, value generation around the digital space. What do you think are the areas that the bill sort of made the proper hits that we need?
Well, you know, this is the first money bill that is emblematic of the Kenya Kwanza administration, because when they came into power last year, they were still operating under the budget that was set by the previous administration. So it gives us a good opportunity to see how the bottom-up transformational model is going to play out, something that's very pro-hustler. I think there has been somewhat of a shift towards, you know, when you look at things like LPG, the VAT exemption on that, that is targeting the ordinary mwananchi. And, you know, that's something that every household uses. So for me, I think that was possibly one of the areas where they got it right. And also on the income tax, trying to make it more progressive, trying to sort of place more responsibility on the people who are earning higher. We do want a progressive tax policy in this country. So I think those are the two areas that I found quite interesting.
No, that's quite interesting. Dr. Kamau,
yes.
I mean, I'm also looking at protecting local industries, looking at the bill, taxation on fish imports, furniture imports. Quite interesting demonstrations from you going through this particular bill.
Yes.
What are the positives?
That's for sure. When we tax imports, what in essence we are doing is to protect local industries. But that is usually not sustainable, because we keep we keep seeing us going back and forth. Like now we have provided for a waiver in terms of charging for imports, in terms of when we are importing maize, rice, vegetables. Right now, because of the acute shortage that we are experiencing in the country due to the drought that we experienced the whole of 2022, now, previously we used to have those import duties imposed on import of food commodities and food stuff, but it has been removed temporarily. So even the issue of the fish, it may be seen as if it is a welcome move, but as Benjamin Franklin said, that the only permanent things is taxes and death. So very soon, that taxes that has been removed on fish import, that has been created on fish import, at some point it is likely to be removed.
Okay.
But in terms of the where the hit and misses, I think they have increased the rate of turnover tax from 1% to 3%. And turnover tax is this tax that was addressing the small medium enterprises.
Okay.
That instead of them being taxed the 30% as other large scale corporates, they were being charged at 1%.
Yes.
So what that technically meant, if someone has made a sales of 100,000, you would only pay 1,000 as taxes because 1% of 100,000, and that was final. But now it has been changed, reviewed to 3%, which again will show that the small medium enterprises will be affected adversely.
Okay, Ken, because the discussion about widening the tax net, it's one of those that we've had for many years. How do we bring the informal sector especially into the tax bracket? And the solution to that coming from Treasury, of course, together with KRA, they say turnover tax. So your gross sales annually, we just take 1% of it. Yeah, but it was targeting people who are making between 1 million shillings and 50 million shillings annually. Okay. Now the bill now proposes that we bring that figure to 500,000, which means more businesses will be in the bracket between 500,000 and 15 million. Is this one of the moves that will solve that perennial issue of not so many people being in the net, trying to widen that tax net?
Well, that phrase of widening the tax base, I think, has been used in different contexts. Sometimes it's been used to justify heavy consumption taxes, VAT on everybody, but I don't think that is the right application to it. It is true that any business that's making reasonable income and profit and sustaining a livelihood owes something to the government for the peace, the stability, the security that you get. But I think there has to be a level of proportionality. There has to be, one of the cardinal principles of taxation is proportionality. So for me, for them to get into the 3% range at a time when businesses are still struggling with high cost of power, high cost, some of those businesses are actually in loss-making space. So actually, having people who paying tax when they're in losses. So I think it was a bit too soon. It was a bit too premature at a time when SMEs have been hit hard by COVID. You saw the number of schools that have closed down during COVID. I was saying the number is almost 7,000 private schools. So I don't think it was the right time. But it is important that in the fullness of time, that every entity is able to pay its fair share to the society.
Definitely. Dr. Kamal, Ken mentioned the issue of LPG, which is a good move. Not only, pushing clean energy solutions, but at the same time, making it more affordable so more households can take it up. But on the same breath, also this issue of fuel and VAT. It's quite interesting looking at the proposals by Treasury in this Finance Bill 2023. Are they countering each other?
In a way, in terms of the government wanting to go back to VAT of 16% on petroleum and petroleum products, is going to actually increase the cost of living, and we are likely to see inflation skyrocket. But I think it's not a move that has been made by the government on its own volition. It is, you remember that the first time that we ever discussed the issue of VAT on fuel, it was a strategy by IMF that was asking Kenya that you need to implement some structural adjustment programs so that you show us the ability that you will be able to pay the loans that you are asking for. So as a way of pleasing IMF, I think that's why the government has taken that move to actually comply with the initial suggestion by IMF that petroleum and petroleum products need to be taxed on VAT at a rate of 16%.
Okay.
That was actually the original idea, but when it was introduced, there was an uproar from the general public, and there was some kind of a consensus that instead of zero rating it, we get some middle way. That was 80%. Because the general public would have wanted 0, the government was pushing for 16. That's how we arrived at 8. But now the government is proposing that we go back to 16%.
Quite interesting. Cost of production, Ken, is very much pegged on fuel in this country. Will this see what spiral effect if this is to go through?
You know, fuel is possibly the most important item in any economy, particularly the Kenyan economy. So when the VAT goes to 16%, everything slows down. The economy slows down, the cost of production slows down. So even if IMF had prevailed upon them to show that they have the capacity to pay back the loan, I think Treasury would have made the argument that by increasing the cost of production, businesses will actually slow down, and the revenue that we're expecting to pay you back will actually be more problematic, what they call, the Laffer curve effect. So the fact that Treasury doesn't push back with some of these arguments, I think is one of the letdowns for this. And you talk to any driver, they'll tell you the moment fuel prices go up, there are fewer rides, fewer passengers, and there's much less activity. So I've never understood why they don't push back on some of these IMF policies with some of these economic arguments.
And also for content creators, Dr. Ria, I see you normally have a YouTube channel, we do some digging here and there. Ken, you're also huge on content, either as consumers, but content producers. That is a whole avenue that you've seen sort of really thrive, especially post-COVID. And the government is also very keen on that, to see how we can get something from what you're making in the online spaces. It seems like a reasonable move, especially in an environment where we are trying to, make sure that we are collecting as much as we can, right?
That's for sure, Noah. That's for sure. Because actually the DST, Digital Service Tax, has been charged a withholding tax of 3% previously, but now the government is proposing that we push that on to 15%. But at the end of the day, withholding tax is not a tax. It is just a form of tax that it's just a form or a method that the government is collecting tax beforehand, because this company is supposed to pay income tax at a rate of 30%. So if I do a contract with you and you are supposed to pay me, for instance, 100,000, I'm supposed to pay, and so at the end of the day, after I deduct my expenses, I come up with my profit. That profit is what I'm supposed to pay to the government, 30% of it. So when I'm paying the 30% profit to the government, I will have the advantage to deduct the withholding tax that was withheld when I was receiving income from my clients. So basically, it is not another form of taxation. It is still maybe it is a function of the income tax. Okay. It is a subset. It is a subset of the income tax. So we'll say the year has ended. You are supposed to pay, let's say maybe 30,000. But at some point, we had deducted 15,000, so we'll just pay 15,000 to us.
Okay.
So what the government has said, let's increase what is being retained by the person who is paying this company, which is creating content, and pay so that at the end of the day, we don't have to wait until the end of the year for this company to pay these taxes to us.
Okay. We want to take a short break. When you come back, Ken, I don't know whether you will have tried to create some more content and see how this withholding tax of 15% works. But we'll be also taking a look at the economic survey, which had quite some interesting numbers. Break that down. But now we take that short break. We'll return with more.